Okay, hello everyone. I decided to share an episode today, and I had a very profound insight last night. And so the title finds us serving truth rather than being. King of simulations. What does it mean when the linguistic simulation cracks? You know, honestly, I should have given this talk last night because the experience was there, but there was a feeling to postpone it. In one of my own talks, I was speaking about Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and then I thought about how much have I explained this idea to the listeners. And I would like to start from the past, share certain things about the context of this episode from the past, and then go towards the future. And the future is really who I'm speaking for. Because the past is past, the present is now, but the future can listen with ears that have extended from the unborn. You see, I want to share that in my own quest, and pretty much I'm this person that in 2011 I had an experience where I realized I don't know what is this that is looking out through my eyes. This whole life I had lived a life with ideas, stories, personality, desires, pleasure, pain. But I realized that I don't know, and so the quest for what is this sense of I am. It's really the mystic's question, who am I? And in my effort to go wonder about this, to study it, I came to certain conclusions that mystical traditions from around the world had seen a different route to the progression of intelligence and human intelligence. And there was a shift that back in the day, philosophy had a freedom that it does not have today. After the analytical philosophers, the world has been caged. And so what has it been caged in? That's the question. Right now, let me go to the past actually. So in my search and wonder for who is this that is looking through my eyes, I opened up to different systems and ideologies and ancient mystical systems. There was the Sufi tradition, and in the Sufi tradition, in some sense, they saw it as 4 stages of evolution and progression of the human being. And my point about the past mind, we're like, all right, man, it's a subject you don't ask too many questions about. That is the answer we give. But is that answer enough? That means we are all masquerading as an ideological construct that is relevant, that is a reaction to the environment. And at the same time, there were those people, such as the yogis, the Sufis, very mystics pretty much. People who were like, wait a minute, there's more unknown than known. How am I saying that what I know is the absolute? So you see, there is a humility that comes when you really realize what you don't know. And most people are afraid of what they don't know. That is the tragedy of life. We should be fascinated by it. See, if you are fascinated by the unknown, you become an explorer. But if you are afraid of the unknown, you become a believer. That means you want to stop the exploration, find a comfortable ideological bunker, and be like, okay, this is it, I'm good with this, you know. And yet the world is so fast and it's changing. That means not only is it mind-blowing that we can't see the edge of the sky, at the same time, it's all in a massive system of change where various dimensions of cause and effect are intertwined. But there is something that in ancient traditions, and I'll just say this quickly, in the Sufi tradition, 4 phases. One was the Rend, the gamer, the person who realized life was a game. Then we went to the ego breaker, the person who no longer had a sense of self and was watching the moment as its presence. And then we had those who were considered the crazies. That means these beings would notice something about beyond the veils of sensory perception, and when they would come to communicate it, people would be like, okay, that's crazy. And then the 4th state was the drunkenness, Rendonimas, the drunkenness of the ecstasy of being, not a drunkenness of chemically. It was in some sense a state where you were blissed out on the nature of how reality is being. And if we wanted to wonder about a more sophisticated mystical structure, right, we go to yoga, and you know, this is taken from this Persian guy, this Persian kid who was fascinated by meditation, only to realize that whatever human beings have done has been in the experience of the present. You see, on some level, we're all part of this massive event of life that is happening, you know, and when we're not conscious of it, we don't catch the train. So in yoga, there's something I would like to read for the audience, inspired out of the work of Patanjali, Yoga Sutras. There are 3 levels to Samadhi, what people consider Samadhi. And Samadhi could be said to be a state of total realization. Its finale is the state of total realization of the nature of being. Because if there was a human being wondering, what can we know here? Do you know? And you'll realize very soon that it is a massive objective landscape, and we are this evolutionary creature, this intelligence that is here, that was part of the earth. It's separated from the earth, unconsciously dwelling on it, and then eventually it became conscious of itself, similar to how Jacques Lacan says there's the mirror effect, where the child suddenly notices itself in the mirror. There's self-awareness, sophistication of it. And so now that we're conscious individuals, what our intelligence has done is that it has overlaid a subjective reality over the outer realms, and that is where we play the game of meaning. We play the game of what makes sense. We play the game of personalities and identity. But Samadhi was realizing the nature of being. Even if there was a tiny percentage, or even if there was a possibility that it surpassed the human eyes. Do you see how big of a challenge and task that is? That if there is something going on here this whole time that surpasses the capacity of the human ideological systems to grasp. Do you see? It's as if there was a something happening behind the scenes of reality. And the yogis realized it. What the beautiful thing about it is that in the Upanishads, you know, they say not this, not this. Even Lao Tzu in China Do you know, at that time, he even concluded in the Tao Te Ching, the truth that can be spoken about is not the real truth. Or those who say do not know, and those who know do not say, right? But Lao Tzu said that, you see. What I'm trying to get to is that there is a secret ladder of a route where the attention evolves. And for someone in 2021 to have a mystical mindset, you're concerned with the unknown factors of how all these species, how all the members of our species are behaving, but also how what we see suggests what the future generations can see. There's a huge responsibility for every active, conscious living unit in this realm. You know, there was a man by the name of Buckminster Fuller Marshall McLuhan. They both used the term spaceship Earth. When it comes to human identity, we're all on a rock spinning in the middle of nowhere. Therefore, there's a responsibility of our intelligence as the most advanced communication of the universal sector. You know, it is now the dawn of the advanced communicators. So, still, I want to keep the audience's attention on the past and then build up more to the future. There's something I would like to read for you on the levels of Samadhi. Level 1, and you know, we say levels, but these are states of being, you know. That means if you access it, you access it. Level 1, Nirvikalpa Samadhi. This first level of Samadhi has within it 4 different stages, and I'm reading this, guys. This first level of Samadhi has within it 4 different stages. The beginning stages of Nirvikalpa Samadhi are where during meditation you transcend all mental activity. Patanjali says that for a short period of time you lose all human consciousness. In this state, the concepts of time and space are altogether different. For a minute, an hour or more, you are in another world. Now you see that practically everything happens spontaneously. You have nothing to do. Thoughts and ideas do not affect you. You remain undisturbed, and your inner being functions in a dynamic and confident manner. Stage 1 of level 1 of, what was it called? Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Sarvitarka Samadhi is stage 1. Here the mind totally focuses on the gross aspect of a physical object. This is described as examination, or learning the inner secrets of the object. In this stage, every aspect of the object is understood and you gain full knowledge of the physical object. Stage 2, Savichara Samadhi. Now the mind moves beyond the outer layers of the object, and the subtle aspects of objects, tanmatras, are contemplated or discerned. The abstract qualities such as redness, beauty, love, or the sound, texture, form, flavor, etc. of the object begin to be understood. Stage 3, Sarananda Samadhi. Here the mind is devoid of the objective world. You move beyond the intellect. There is no reasoning or reflection, just the tranquility of the settled mind. The sattvic pure mind is only aware of its own joy. The focus is on the inner powers of perception and within the mind itself. It's known as blissful Samadhi, filled with joyful peace. Stage 4 of level 1, Sasmita Samadhi. Now even the bliss is gone and you're just here. Only the sattvic pure ego, the I-ness remains, the I am. Simple awareness of individuality. You are here and aware of nothing else. This is the ego sense in its elemental form. No fear, no desire. This samadhi can be likened to what is known in the Sankara tradition as cosmic consciousness. The mind becomes fully awake. It is a state of witnessing of the material world, and you become aware of the divinity bliss within yourself. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the samskaras, latent tendencies, or past impressions which condition your life and desires have not been dissolved. They still remain in seed form. The great Indian saint Ramana Maharshi describes Nirvikalpa Samadhi as holding on to reality with effort. In this samadhi, the concentrated mind can begin to access some of the lesser yogic power siddhis. However, because the ego is still present, you must be careful how you choose to use these powers. If you use them with a pure motive, you can greatly serve humanity and will progress on your spiritual journey with humility. If you choose to use them for personal greed and ambition, you may cause harm and stall your spiritual progress. So now we get to level 2, Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So there's 3 levels to Samadhi. The first one had 4 parts. Nirvikalpa Samadhi is a higher state of awareness where the ego and samskaras have been dissolved and only consciousness remains. Patanjali says the material world has become like a shadow from which you're completely free. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there is no mind as you know it. There is only infinite peace and bliss. Here, nature's dance stops, and the knower and the known become one. Here you enjoy a supremely divine, all-pervading, self-amorous ecstasy. You become the object of enjoyment, the enjoyer and the enjoyment itself. Now the heart is fully awake. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the first thing you feel is that your heart is larger than the universe itself. The universe appears as a tiny dot inside your vast heart. Here there is infinite bliss and infinite power. You not only feel bliss, but actually become bliss. Level 3, Dharma Mega Samadhi. An even higher level of Samadhi is Dharma Mega, or the cloud of virtue Samadhi. Patanjali says that this level arises when you have lost even the desire to know God or to be enlightened. This samadhi can be gained by effort. It reveals itself when all effort has dissolved. It is a divine gift beyond notions of absolute and relative. When even the temptations of the yogic powers cause no distraction, it is said that pure knowledge showers down like a cloud of virtue, bringing liberation and the bliss of the divine. This is Jivan Mukta, liberation while still in a physical body. The afflictions of all karmas have been removed. The yogi becomes ever free and shines in his or her own glory. It is said that in this state, the yogi sees without eyes, tastes without tongue, hears without ears, smells without nose, and touches without skin. His or her mere intention can work miracles. The yogi simply wills, and everything comes into being. So, now that the audience has a sense of samadhi and the levels of it, I made some notes last night, which I'm gonna walk through those as I speak. Last night, when I read this is about Nirvikalpa Samadhi, where it says this is a higher state of awareness where the ego and samskaras have been dissolved and only consciousness remains. Patanjali says the material world has become like a shadow from which you're completely free. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there is no mind as you know it, there's only infinite peace and bliss. Last night, in my inner rounds, as my attention was on this topic, I had this very strange feeling where there was all of human civilization and all the minds of everybody we know on this planet is in a sphere, human minds. They're imagined inside this giant light sphere, okay? And last night, for a second, I felt I was standing outside of that sphere, and then I realized that the suggestion of getting rid of your samskaras or latent tendencies means that karma is a cycle of cause and effect, and cause and effect is the event. And in this event, human psychology has appeared and is identifying with the movement of image rather than wondering and asking the great question, who is aware of the image? Right now, my eyes are open. I'm sitting on my balcony and I see the landscape ahead of me. But regardless of what I see, awareness, there is a one-sided kind of like a flashlight where the light comes out from the front of it. Do you know? It's like, imagine there's a spotlight on a theater. What's in the theater is your body and is the world. But that spotlight itself, the light that allows in the darkness of existence for there to be conscious frameworks of living, that spotlight is unknown. It is the unknown. That means it is an experientially unknown being. Terence McKenna had this great quote where he said there's another tenant in the room. Religious traditions are acknowledging God. Do you know, whatever tradition, any sort of esoteric or spiritually oriented ideological system, it's pretty much levels and there's events going on at other levels. But the yogi and the rishi wanted to get to the center of not the earth in front of its eyes, in front of the eyes, but behind the eyes. That means if Jules Verne meditated, that was another way of journeying to the center of the earth. To me, I feel there's a simulation going on. All of us are inside a language-based simulation. You know, when I was younger, knowledge was like a great tree that was worth climbing. Now I still see the tree, but I have realized that the tree's branches endlessly extend into the sky. They don't end. There is something to every person that is alive where I would say this is the presence of being rather than the consciousness to the doer. You see, everything is existing. That means nobody is existing less than others. They may be existing culturally in accordance to past reference points or future reference points in good or bad ways. But everybody is existing. That means as long as you're a breathing human being, you have access to this workspace. If there is the implication that beyond human living, there is a life to the world that surpasses human ideology, we reach the edge of knowledge, ideological knowledge, then your interests shift to experience. As you stand outside the simulations of humanism, it's as if the human psychological life's karma finishes, and the karma of the multidimensional being arises. On the journey towards the great Samadhi, of not just being awake in the cosmos, just being aware of it, but realizing that awareness is the only. Now, if there is a state where there is no mind and there's only infinite peace and bliss, what could this practically imply to 8 billion creatures now coming to the present in civilization? What can happen here? Firstly, the species requires to go through a new filter of reality. Personally, I have concluded that every human being having an ability to discriminate between their inner realms and their outer realms, to be able to discriminate between the expectations of their subjective life and the expectations of the objective life. You see, you first study cause and effect in the outer realms, and when I say outer realms, that's in front of your eyes. You see objects, and you wonder about how they're being caused and what their effect is. For example, I see a light of a candle. I know that the cause was somebody lit the candle. But now, if I take the question towards my inner realms and I'm like, who noticed the candle? The cause is instantaneous, as if attention and energy are simultaneously being present. It's as if what the word soul is another way of saying energy that is conscious of itself. And energy cannot be created and destroyed, and if it's conscious, it is the ever-present watcher of its journey. So if energy and consciousness are the same, or I should say energy and awareness, not consciousness, because consciousness is conditional to a form. But if energy and awareness is the same, that means there is an observer without any reference, observing the changes of references. Imagine 8 billion human beings realized they were multidimensional. This is, in some sense, the death of dualism. No longer we see people as good or bad, but we see them as a potential to move in so many different ways that unless the person's inner realm chooses to express itself, the outer realms will never know. We are living different lives behind our lives than how we express and can even express and communicate in the outer realms. Words are just the frosting on the cake of reality. They're not the cake. They are covering it. So the moment human beings can discriminate between their subjective, objective life, a lot of cruelty, a lot of discrimination, a lot of hatred goes away. And so it's as if the species took a wrong turn, and so it's stopping. And when it stops, it realizes the nature of the object. And when it stops the object, its physical body goes towards stillness. It realizes the nature of how its mind is moving. And as it watches the events of its mind, soon the being realizes they are not the content of their mind. And so you're rendered as the final stillness. And from this stillness, we free ourselves from being kings and queens of simulations. You see, the brain is a projective mechanism. Neurochemistry, hallucinating, imaginary abstraction. I mean, think about it. The brain is creating imagination. We're considering imagination not real, but we see it. So when you notice that you are an object, a certain amount of physical karma is released. When you realize you're not a subject, your physical karma is completely released. Once the games of the mind are finished, pure consciousness remains. And as you remain as that, your true nature shifts and revolutionizes the background implications of meaning. Of what objects and subjects have to be in a changing world. It's changing. This whole time the world has been changing, and we slow it down to create characters and stories that allow themselves to suffer. Beyond how an object has clasped the awareness, or a subject, or you have clasped onto it. Once the mind is realized to be simulating, every day you wake up, you're like a new day. What is that? The brain's active, something's happening. So it's a simulation. So any person who becomes ego-focused, that means their sense of self is so important, more important than the world, you become the king of the simulation. But the king of the simulation doesn't exist. If the simulation doesn't. That means imagine you became king of a cyberspace reality in the future. Cyberspace was globalized, people could go into cyberspace anytime, and imagine there was a person who was just very simple person in the outer realms, natural realms, and when they went into cyberspace, they were like a king. And the moment that cyberspace simulation shuts down, what king? So this is why the search for the true nature of reality which you can summarize that or say it as serving truth, surpasses any sort of ownership in a changing world. Right? Not that we shouldn't have rules, like when you think about society and culture, completely different game. But when you wonder about, okay, why am I here? Why is here? You know? Or as how Nisargadatta Maharaj has said that you die now to the now. That means you awaken to the nature that this whole time it has not just been your life, it has been the world's life. So when there is no clasp or grabbing your sense of self as if that is the only meaning, and when you realize that cause and effect, they're like birds flying in the sky, what can you do? You watch them. That's all that you can do. You should not fight karma, for it is how the world is moving in the moment, do you know? The world is free. It is man that has enslaved himself. We have been free from the beginning. Nature was free. Our minds caged it. And it's not that it's an issue. It's not that we need to break the cage. It's as if you stepped into a room where reality appeared in a certain way. And now through your uncertainty, you notice the door. And you realize the door out of any simulation is the entrance and the exit. What I envision for the human species is that maybe in the next 100 to 200 years, this awakening to an innate multidimensionalism of reality will happen. It's as if we have lived as an object and been there, done that. Now we're in the point in history where we're living as a subject and we have not realized we're more than subjects. And to realize it in a social system, it's like, who would you be then? Right? So that means it's a complete shift into another context where we have not even built a civilization for those kinds of beings. Those who are attention roaming the space-time continuum, but they are not people, but they can live. You see, it's as if energy is awakening to itself beyond transformation. So the shift I see is, first, people are going to realize that life is more than a story, and that the brain is simulating stories. And so we are constantly positioning ourselves as a character in a world. And you can totally see this, for example, when somebody goes into any environment. Let's say you go to a bank. Let's say you're a leader of a nation and you go to the United Nations, right? So it's as if every room you enter, the character readjusts in accordance to the stimulus present. So it's as if even if you hold yourself as if you are the supreme, you'll realize that every moment is changing the sense of self. And so what is actually supreme is not a thing. You know, some people said they were nothing, you know, but I think the point was that they were not a thing. They were no thing. That there's something more here. That there is universalism waiting for us outside of our eyes. So people begin realizing they have inner realms and outer realms. Everybody in their inner realms is how they see life, which is unique, and we're all in the same outer realms. Once we realize civilization is like a general story that we're all functioning in, or this notion of the human species is also a general story, that's when everybody begins realizing the linguistic simulation. When you step out of the linguistic simulation, you will be less of a self. You will be selfless. And a selfless species is one where it's trusting. Right now, imagine if there was a ratio. It's maybe like 60% distrust, 40% trust. Or you could change it. Maybe 60% of people trust the world and 40% don't. Now, when this goes from whatever ratio or percentage of distrust to 100% trust, when you trust something, you don't worry about your past to endlessly keep confirming it. When you trust, you trust. If you step on a bridge and you're walking past a bridge, you trust it. If you realize there's something wrong with the bridge, you never step on it. So people are living in the human life, in this world of ours. So people trust. You have to trust in order to use. You know, if you don't trust the tool, you can't use it. So when the ratio and the percentage goes to 100% trust, meaning the individual has been stationed into the presence of a viewer, unknown viewer of known objects and subjects. It's as if for the first time human civilization will be assisted by nature. So you see, we're natural beings. We took an unnatural turn. We separated ourselves physically and then ideologically from nature. We built our own world. Now this world has become so big where we're like, how are we going to maintain it? And we're realizing that now we're returning back to nature. You know, that means an advanced civilization is not built by just people. It is built by the world. It is the gift of the realm to itself. So when you remain as that pure consciousness, I think this is what's going to happen to those people who have been dabbling in spiritual or metaphysical ideology for some time. They're going to realize, what is the point though? Is it next, always a next image, next image, next image, until you watch. You watch the watcher. That means there's no way you can look at the one who's looking through your eyes, look at the one who's looking. The only way is to realize you're being it. And you see in the outer realms, our realizations have to do with doing things, but behind our eyes, our realizations come when we notice the nature of how we're being. So it's as if human psychology goes into the passenger seat of being, and through a trust of nature's will, synchronistically, just like how a seed knows how to become a tree, civilizations arise. We are evolving towards selfless fields of being. It's as if, imagine a small iceberg trying to create a bigger iceberg, but the moment they melt, they realize they have been the whole ocean the whole time. You see, the desires of individual psychology, you attain a state of relief, as if, where is all my ideology going? And you see it's infinite. So when you come to the infinite, the finite is not the same. And so personalities don't build advanced civilizations. The presence of the universe brings it forth. Our presence. That means right now my voice, part of my personality. My body still is associated to the personality. But what is just being here before I say something or move? That is awareness, being. So what it is it's not thinking that the individual life is a problem and then you got to get rid of it and then you just hover selflessly. It's more like the individual life and everything's happening to the individual self is a room, and you just realize there's more rooms, or that room's in a bigger room. So the inner reaction to how the outer realms are suggesting you is complete. You don't have that reaction anymore. You know, there's moments where I have felt I am the body, I am my body, and there's moments where I have felt I am standing in the body. I am just in it. You know, it's as if the person says, I celebrate my birthdays. My birthday, who's that my? It's as if every candle we blow, not only will there be another, but it's as if we have never been what we have seen only. That means who would have thought, as if we're using our eyes to find truth and then truth is beyond our eyes. I don't know, guys. There's a part of me that feels that I'm here for a limited time, so why not have desires? And then there's a part of me that feels the desires are just having an inner result. That means when somebody, for example, does something evil or does something to the outer realms is cruel or hateful or whatnot, they receive something in their inner realms. They're getting something in their inner realms, but then they realize it's hollow, it's alone. That means if you never communicate to your world, it's as if you have never been in it. You know, it's like connecting yogic, Vedic insight to like Marvel comics. It's as if like the Iron Man suit is the I thought, is the sense of self, and then Tony Stark is the Atman or the Parabrahman. It's as if human beings are a part of life, but the life of life is more than one part of it. In my visions, inner visions of an advanced civilization, I was thinking about what is the fastest way. And I realized two things: that right now the species doesn't have purpose. We have tragedy waiting, and we're trying to respond to that tragedy, but we don't have a global purpose. That means imagine every nationalist, they raised their flag and they cheered for their nation, but then they were like, okay, what do we cheer for next? And it's as if the rule of every nation on the global stage, the day where leaders of all countries will be like, wait a minute, we are governing the temporary and denying the temporary, not denying, but not providing the opportunity for the temporary to seek the eternal. The concept the species has to care for more than its ideas, to see the world and then be it. Right now, it's like 8 billion individual programs are playing out. Every human being who has a DNA, they're like a seed planted in the soil, and so they will have an expression. Whoever you are, wherever you are, eventually in this life, you will be something. But now, after we're being that thing, what is the value of the whole system? And so I have concluded that in the outer realms, the greatest thing we can do is build an advanced civilization. In the inner realms, the greatest thing we can do is to advance communication. And once we advance communication in the inner realms, the outer realms, advanced civilization happens. Now, if the inner realm advanced communication goes to the point of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it will mean a point where no doubt, no fear, no identity for all those to be connected to. People will become incredible power sources for the civilization, for the advanced civilization. And you know what it is? It's as if before, just theoretically think about, hypothetically think about it, that before extraterrestrial contact, if in the future, potentially, if it's going to happen, it's as if the species is awakened to another alien force. And this alien force is not of a shape, it's not of a name, it is not of an agenda, it is just the field of cosmic being. It's as if the planet is alive, and meeting that is as intense as if there was an alien that landed on Earth. There is a force that is moving prior to the attention selecting in the inner realms what requires to be communicated or shared in the outer realms. There will be episodes of fear. The species might even hate itself. But in the darkest hour, dawn comes. And the darkest hour for the future of this species is becoming kings of the hollow. You know what it is? There's many people around the world that fear the idea of possession, not realizing that in the outer realms we are possessing the environment. And if the world outside adjusts to the inner realms of 8 billion human beings having each different inner realms, and they're like, I want to see the world eyes, you know, it would lead to anarchy. But if the attention is grounded in a state where the person has released the inner realms from the outer realms and the outer realms from the inner realms, then in any moment it's as if you're an observer of just form, of matter. It's as if a day of living like that would be similar to just your eyes open and there is no sense of personality, sense of you, you're just being. And wherever you go, then it is evoked, then it arises automatically. The inner realm architecture, The inner realm structure just arises. You know, we're not living with our hearts. We're living with our minds that measures the moment from the past. And unless we trust the realm, we can't use it in the greatest way. So if civilization is taking the psychology of human beings towards distrusting their world, you know, towards doubting it, then it's as if you are allowing yourself through distrust to not be where it was like an opportunity. You know, it's like a person paid for a roller coaster ride, is on the roller coaster, and before the roller coaster ride starts, they're like, no, why am I in this roller coaster? You know, is someone making me go in the roller coaster? Not realizing that their attention brought them here. It is one's karma. I very firmly consider that where communication happens, it is not in a physical room. It is a subtler space. In earlier talks, I called it subtler planes of abstraction. I think it was from maybe in 2019 when I was giving the talks regularly every day, where I remember that before giving the talks, I would close my eyes and an event would take place in my inner realms, and then I would have a sense of emotion, an emotional response to the inner event. Then I would turn on the microphone and talk. The past cannot capture the future because it does not know what the future will bring. You know, there may be a majority of the population who's afraid of the future, but you don't know who will be born. You don't know what kind of pilots will arrive. And so right now, in the point in 2021, we're not close to an advanced civilization. In our inner realms, we can instantly envision a better world and live in accordance to that. But in the outer realms, we are at the gardener phase, where every person's life and decisions is like planting how the world will appear. If you're kind to people, that energy will echo. If you're cruel to people, that energy will echo. And if people have a great purpose, they will have honor. Without purpose, you can't have honor. You know, you can't have ideals, you can't have a vision. But if the purpose is that you're here to advance civilization and you take the torch of human history, human progress, and take it as far as you can, and then pass it on to the future generations, the future generations will be in awe of that honor and they will take it further. You know, our destiny is not to become robots, and our destiny is not to return back to the forests like the primitive life forms we were. The destiny of the attention of the being is a recognition that the world is alive. We are like all parts of nature that have named themselves. Once we realize the true nature, the presence of nature, then your enemies and even your friends and any ideological framework just goes to the background. You know, whether it's religion or other mystical practices, there's the idea of devotion, and devotion leading to selfless service. Even if you look at a religious person, what do you see? Their attention is on an inconceivable God. They are worshipping the inconceivable source of reality. There's a quote I want to share, if I can find it. This is from the Amrit Bindu Upanishad. That in whom reside all beings, and who resides in all beings, who is the giver of grace to all, the supreme soul of the universe, the limitless being. I am that. And when the Sarga, the Upanishads are saying I am that, it's another way of saying truth was here before you were, and if you are a true being, if you truly exist, then you were here before you were here, or you were here before the here and now. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, I feel what happens is that you realize, you step out of the linguistic simulation and you realize that the nature of being surpasses, again, humanism. When it surpasses humanism, it's as if you have no fear of using the humanism. The analogy would be similar to like a mechanic holding a wrench to fix an engine. Now, when the mechanic thinks it's the wrench, and when the wrench contacts the engine, the mechanic's like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? But when the mechanic realizes the wrench is the tool, when you realize that your personality is the tool of universal presence, is an instrument of universal presence, then who has fear? The universe? And there is a screen, by the way. There is a sort of position you reach in mystical inquiry, in my experience at least, where you've played with objects, you've played with subjects, but then you are left with your eyes. And all that can be done is you wait. You wait until there is no one waiting anymore. There is no viewer. I shouldn't say there is no viewer. The viewer is not it. As if the object and subject, or one is neither of them, so it's like the observer and the observer. You reach a point where there's no longer that dualism. It's as if silence and stillness of a character in a video game make that character realize it's beyond the screen, somebody who's playing the character. Imagine again a video game. So when you stop being the character in the video game, you are beyond the screen where that character is in. You can stand up from the computer, go somewhere else. There's a freedom of identification, freedom from identification. An advanced civilization will very quickly arise when the world remembers itself to trust itself. when people become the presence of reality, and when the presence of reality is no longer reality. Eyes that wake up every day to a changing world, wondering what is the resolution to this yearning, to this journey. That means, am I the only person who's wondering about this? It's as if we're on a rock in the middle of nowhere. We've created our own languages, we've storified the whole thing, and we've conditioned ourselves to live in a very small aspect of reality, not noticing that we were more multidimensional, than the stories could suggest. We are not characters. We are the universe itself. And so it's as if rise, mankind, rise, but now rise beyond mankind's rise. In this episode, my visions of an advanced civilization are summed up in this idea I call Civilization 2.0. And there are stages of how we step out of the linguistic simulation is by realizing that we are more than our inner realms and globally beginning discussions. It's as if eyes teach eyes until sight was beyond both. The people are thinking, what should I do in the world? The mystic has reached a point where he's like, how am I being the world? I would like to share a story. And again, anybody who's interested in Civilization 2.0, you can refer to other talks on the topic, just search it. This story is a suggestion of how the Lotus Sutra saw Buddha's ending. The word Buddha means the awakened one. The person's name was Gautama Siddhartha. But awakened to what? To the nature of being. And so it's as if Buddha is lying down waiting to leave his body from the Lotus Sutra's perspective, where he suddenly goes into a hysteria, and all his disciples who have for their whole life tried to be like him are shocked, and they're like, why Buddha? What's going on? What's wrong? And the Buddha looks at them in his hysteria and he says, I have been mistaken. And so the disciples and everybody around there, they're like, oh my God, if he's mistaken, we're all like done for. And so they say to the Buddha, what is it? What is the mistake? And Buddha says, we have all been enlightened from the beginning, because that is the nature of presence beyond personality. And once even the desire, I personally feel it's a round circle. That means you are first reacting to what you can't accept in the spiritual or metaphysical perspective. Those people who are truth seekers, you feel truth is not right there. So you go looking for it, and in order to look for it, you need to bounce off something. And what you bounce off is pointing to the ego or pointing to something that is wrong. And then what the insight comes to reveal, like a 360 degree, is that what was there from the beginning is as divine as what you come to the ending. So you return back to matter. That means if you think spirituality means you were a materialist and you went immaterial, it's like beyond the immaterial, you realize that it's all here. There's something that I could appreciate from the religious perspective, where there were some people who they were like, I only fear God. That means the inconceivable dictation of reality, the inconceivable journey. There is only one time to realize you're free. Now. When else? Where else? What else? It is now. To first surpass the fear of self, then to even surpass the love of self, then to be where all the beginnings started. As the linguistic simulation cracks in the next 100 to 200 years, the multidimensional era will start, starting with geometrical revolutions, design revolutions. And then cyberspace will make an entrance globally. Then a return to nature, then beyond the language threshold. It's as if energy is free, but its transformations are not. Or consider themselves not to. Nature's wisdom transcends human thought. We're all part of the great tree of being. And as the great poet Rumi says, what you seek is seeking you. Truth was here before you. Thank you for listening. Much blessings and namaste.